Hi, welcome to a new video, and in this one we're having a initial look at Dakar Desert Rally. So this is been out a few days now, and I've managed to spend a reasonable amount of time with it and have a good play around with it. And just wanted really to talk about my initial thoughts on it prior to doing a full review. Now that might be a little while because I'm extremely busy over the next few weeks, but I will try and get round to it as quickly as I can. So initially, what are my first thoughts on this? Well, a little bit of a preamble. This is obviously the follow-up, the successor to Dakar 18, which was the last Dakar title we got, and obviously that was 4 years ago, being Dakar 18. So we've been a little while, to say the least, without a title in this series, and really it's the only title out there that treats Rally Raid properly. Now I know we've kind of had faux Rally Raid in some of the more lighter dirt titles, but that don't mistake that for this. That they are quite different things in a lot of ways. And with Dakar Desert Rally, you do have the option of the full fat proper Rally Raid experience with the navigation waypoints, your co-driver, and with that the navigation is as much of a challenge as the actual driving is. You know, getting to the end of a stage, and the stages are absolutely huge, and managing to hit every single checkpoint in and of itself is a real challenge when you go for the full-blown version of it, the full experience with all assistance turned off. And that was a big put-off to a lot of people for Dakar 18. So I think it kind of hit the popularity or the potential of the title in quite a big way in that regard. There was no gentle introduction to it. And the good news, certainly in terms of the potential success of the title, is that for Dakar Desert Rally, they have resolved that. We now have a sport mode, which is more akin to, you know, your traditional, and I don't like to use the term because this isn't really an arcade racing game, but more the mechanisms of an arcade racing game. You know, you're setting off with the full field at the start in the sports mode. You've got effectively what is guidance in an augmented reality kind of way laid out for you. The checkpoints you've got to hit are big, you know, glowing pillars in the sky, these kind of things, and you know, you're fighting for position there, but you've still got your co-driver calling out all of the cap headings and things like this. So you're kind of learning by osmosis with this. You're getting partially ingrained into the navigation side of things in the sports mode without really knowing it, which is quite nice. And that then allows you, I mean, you can complete the entire game like that if you want. You don't have to go any further than that, and it makes it a really well structured, for want of a better way of describing it, introduction to Rally Raid and the kind of event it is, and the importance of the navigation and the way you are moving across what seems like a completely open area, and you've got to go from one point to another, and these points are completely arbitrary, and so long as you hit the point, it arguably doesn't matter how you get there. And you know, the road book ties into all of that kind of thing as well. So it introduces you into that. Now, in a really weird decision, the only way you can unlock additional vehicles, or some of the historic additional vehicles, is by playing the sport mode, which does strike me as a little bit strange in that regard, but there we go. When you then get into the medium and the professional difficulty, now I haven't unlocked the full professional difficulty, that's going to take quite a bit of time to do that, but this is where a lot of the aids, in particular your glowing columns of light and your direction indicators laid out in front of you, disappear, and you've got to rely now on your road book and your co-driver and your actual heading indicators, particularly your cap heading, to know how to get from point to point. And successful completion of these stages now moves from, whereas in sports mode you had to achieve over a certain position on the leaderboard to be able to progress through to the next event or to unlock events, with this, you've actually got to make sure you don't miss checkpoints. You have a limited number of checkpoints that you can miss without being disqualified. and you're very often the only vehicle in sight, and that, for reasons we'll come back to, is not actually necessarily a bad thing. So it completely changes the dynamic, but it's really interesting and nice how sports mode actually builds quite well into these two more rally raid focused and serious, for want of a better way of describing it, approaches. And I really like it. I think it works well, and for what is most definitely not a AAA title, we're looking at a single A here, possibly, if we're really generous, 2 A's. I've never understood how that system works, but there we go. You know, it's not a AAA title, but it is reasonably well presented in that regard. There's a fair bit still missing. I mean, we don't have a photo mode or replay mode yet, but they are on the roadmap. That said, it looks reasonably good. It performs okay. I mean, it's blatantly an Unreal Engine 4 title that hasn't been fully optimised. And this, unfortunately, does come to the fore in the sport mode, where if you've got a lot of cars around you, particularly if the weather effects are coming in, because it's got dynamic day-night cycles, it's got dynamic weather in it, and if it's hammering down with rain, you've got a thunderstorm going bonkers in the background, and a lot of cars around you, a lot of particle effects, which do look really good, by the way, then it can absolutely tank the frame rate, which is not great. And I mean, what you're watching here is PC footage off of the Steam version, but I've heard the same is true of console versions, that in certain circumstances the frame rate can absolutely tank. And that's where moving away from sport mode, where you're more likely to be the only vehicle or one of a small number of vehicles in your immediate vicinity, and more importantly on screen, becomes a benefit, because it allows this really nice landscape to look and feel a hell of a lot better, and it does work well from that point of view. So it tends to hide a bit of the issues with optimization, but don't get me wrong, these are huge stages as well. Now, although the distance is truncated in them, I believe by a factor of about 5, you know, you're still looking at, you know, a 75-mile stage is still fairly long. You know, it's a fair amount to compete. Now, that said, I'm only a short distance into the title, and what I've not come across yet is any stages the lengths that we used to have in Dakar 18. Now, in Dakar 18, in all seriousness, you could spend 30 to 40 minutes on a stage. They were that long. I haven't found anything that comes even remotely close to that yet, so I don't know whether, you know, that is a compromise that has been made as we've moved from Dakar 18 over to Dakar Desert Rally. And I can kind of understand why, because it does make the title more accessible from that point of view, but it also then does have the downside that that is less of what some people, and to a degree myself, look for in a Dakar title after a more full-fat Dakar experience. I'm hoping, because I've spent most of my time messing around in the sport mode so far, that the other two modes give me more of that, and certainly that's one of the things I want to look at prior to doing the full review. Audio-wise, it's okay, it's nothing to write home about, but it's nothing hideously offensive either. In terms of support and integration for hardware, I must confess, on PC with my T300, it asked me to map it out of the box and pick that up perfectly well as I launched the game. The force feedback was far too strong to begin with, so I don't know what strength of wheels they benchmarked this off of when they did this setup guide, but for a T300 to be nearly tearing your arms off and need to be turned down, God knows what it was like for anybody with a direct drive wheel. That must have been interesting. I have heard reports that wheel functionality needs heavily patching and is basically not working on console, so that's something that needs to be done and needs to be addressed. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's a good fun little title. It's more accessible in a lot of ways than Dakar 18 was. That's got some plus points. I'm hoping that doesn't also result in negatives, as I've mentioned earlier on, but wheel support's decent out of the box. It looks pretty good. It could do with some optimization work, and some of the progress is not as clear as it could be, but overall, yeah, a solid start, and certainly for the price. I think I paid about £35 for it, so for a brand new release, that's actually pretty good. And I know it wasn't that expensive, you know, it was reasonably priced on console as well, so far it's actually looking quite promising. Spend more time with it, see what it's like, and keep an eye out for the full release in a week or so, where I'll let you know what my final verdict is on Dakar Desert Rally. So that's all for this particular video. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button, your choice. And if you want to talk about it, leave comments down below. And if you've enjoyed the video and want to see more content like this, please do hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified when new videos get uploaded. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.